You see, the secret lies not in struggling toward your desires, but in understanding that you are already the unfolding of what you seek. This is not pretending in the ordinary sense. It's not about putting on a mask or faking confidence. It's about realizing that the very act of desiring something implies that, on some deeper level, you know it's possible for you. What if otherwise you wouldn't feel the pull? Just by acting as though you already possess the treasure is not lack. It is a message from the deeper self, a whisper that says, come this way. So when you act as if you always get what you want, you're not lying to the world, you're aligning with it. You stop negotiating with reality as if it's an opponent, and you start dancing with it. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, carry yourself with the quiet knowing of someone who belongs. The universe doesn't respond to pleading or proving. It responds to presence. It listens to how you feel, not what you say. The paradox, of course, is that once you stop needing it so desperately, and so you begin to act, not from fear or doubt, but from awareness. You act as if the path is already laid out beneath your feet. You don't wait for the world to confirm it. You confirm it in the way you move through the world. You smile at the mirror not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You take the next step not because you're sure, but because you trust. So when a desire arises, whether it's the longing for love, success, peace, purpose, or abundance, when you act, it is not a punishment. The world echoes it. It is not a cruel joke from the universe dangling something just out of reach. It is a sacred invitation, a vibration within you resonating with a higher possibility, calling you forward, not to chase, but to remember. You desire because at some level you already are what you are seeking. You already carry the frequency of that desire. It is not foreign to you, it is. And when you treat desire as lack, you step into the role of a beggar in the universe. You plead, you push, you struggle to prove your worthiness. But when you recognize that your desires come from a deeper awareness of your own potential, you stop striving and start aligning. You begin to feel your way into that reality, not by forcing it, but by allowing it, by honoring that if it's calling you, it's because it's already a part of your essence, ready to emerge. This is why the most powerful manifestation doesn't come from struggle. It comes from stillness, from that quiet space where you feel the truth of your own completeness. You begin to understand that the act of wanting isn't about reaching out, it's about tuning in. It's about becoming so present, so open, that you can hear what your soul is whispering through every desire. Think about how a flower blooms. It doesn't chase the sun, it turns toward it. Knowing it was designed to do so, it doesn't doubt its own unfolding. Your desires are like sunlight. They call you into growth not because you are lacking, but because you are ready to express more of what's already inside you. The rosebud holds the full rose within it long before it blooms. And you, too, carry the full bloom of your desires before the world sees them. When you understand this, desire becomes sacred. It becomes something to trust, not to fear. You no longer shame yourself for wanting more, or worry that wanting is selfish or unspiritual. This changes everything. You stop chasing outcomes and start embodying them. You stop asking, how will I get this? And start asking, who must I be to allow this to flow through me? In this rhythm, there is no luck. There is no waiting. There is only becoming. Each desire is a wave of possibility rising within your consciousness, not to tease you, but to awaken you. And when you honor those waves, when you trust that you would not have the desire unless the fulfillment was also possible, you begin to see your life not as a quest to fix what is missing, but as a canvas where the masterpiece of your true self is slowly revealed, stroke by stroke, moment by moment. To act as if is not to deceive others or to wear a mask for the sake of appearances. It is not pretending in the way the world often defines it, where one hides behind false bravado, trying to convince others of something untrue. Rather, to act as if is to move from a place of alignment. It is to embody a deeper truth that may not yet be visible to the senses, but is deeply felt in the heart. It is not the projection of a false identity, but the expression of a truer one. The you that already knows what it means to be whole. Most people misunderstand this concept. Be fulfilled. They think it means to fake confidence, to walk with inflated ego, to speak with certainty about things they do not yet believe. When you act as if you always get what you want, you are not claiming superiority or entitlement. You are claiming alignment. It is the art of allowing yourself to become what you already are on the inside. Even if the external world has not yet reflected it back to you. This is not delusion. So what does it really mean to act as if? It doesn't mean you don't take action, but the action is inspired, not forced. It flows naturally because it arises from a place of clarity. You stop chasing and you start allowing. You may not have the external reality yet, but you act in alignment with the internal reality. The mind may argue. It may say, this way of being doesn't require grand gestures. It can be subtle. It's in the way you enter a room, the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. It's in the way you speak to yourself in quiet moments. You are telling the universe, this is who I am now. This is what I choose to believe. This is what I am ready to receive. And you stop waiting to be chosen. You realize you've already chosen yourself. When you stop hoping to be seen, you realize you've already seen your own value. You begin to walk like the person who already has peace. You begin to speak like someone who already has purpose. You begin to create, not because you need to prove something, but because expression is your nature. And when you do this consistently, the world can't help but respond. It may not happen overnight, but it will happen, because reality must match the vibration you offer most often. So don't wait for the world to tell you it's time. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for the evidence to arrive. Begin now. When you shift your state of being, you are not merely changing how you feel, you are tuning your entire existence to a new rhythm of life. Remembering what it feels like to live, not in fear, but in alignment with the truth of who you really are. Life, after all, is not a mechanical machine that responds to commands. It is an unfolding dance, responding to the way you move within it. To shift your state is to step into the awareness that you are not your circumstances. You are not what has happened to you. You are not defined by the stories you have told yourself for years. You are the awareness in which those stories appear and disappear. You are the space, not the content. The silence, not just the sound. When you begin to act as if you already get what you want, you are not just hoping for change, you are becoming the change. People often find themselves stuck, even when they are taking massive action. That when the internal tone shifts, a shift happens quietly. It doesn't need to be announced. You might still live in the same place, wear the same clothes, go to the same job, but something within you moves. A subtle but undeniable feeling takes root. You no longer ask, what if it doesn't happen? Very dynamic. This internal shift changes how you speak. Your words carry a new energy. You are no longer seeking reassurance. You are radiating certainty. Find yourself fighting for truth. This is not about pretending you're happy when you're not. It's about discovering that happiness was never in the event, but in your openness to it. This does not mean you bypass pain or deny difficulty. It means you stop identifying them. You allow them to move through you, but you do not let them define you. You choose the energy of the version of you that lives in alignment. When you hold this new state, even for a few moments, you create a ripple. Your energy begins to affect others. Your presence becomes medicine. You don't need to convince the world of your worth anymore. You don't need to beg for love, success, recognition, or support. You've already accepted that you are worthy. And that acceptance changes the atmosphere around you. People feel it. They may not know what shifted, but they are drawn to the steadiness, the calm, the knowing that you carry. This is the real power of shifting your state. It's not a performance, it's not a trick. It's a remembering, a returning. Everything begins with state. Not strategy, not hustle. You do not need to wait until the money comes, the relationship arrives, the healing happens, or the opportunity knocks. The beauty of this shift is that it is always available, no matter where you are, no matter what you're facing. The universe is not a machine governed by static rules and blind chaos. It is more like a song, a dance, a living poem that responds to the tone in which you move. When you act as if you always get what you want, something subtle begins to shift, not just in your behavior, but in the very field around you. You stop moving from lack. You stop reaching, clawing, trying to convince life to give you something. Instead, you begin to rest in a knowing, a relaxed confidence. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You no longer ask, what do I need to do to get this? You begin to ask, how would I move if I already had it? And then you move in that way. When you believe something is already yours, you no longer chase it, you prepare for it. You make space for it. You welcome it with openness and grace. You don't worry if it's coming. You wonder what form it will take. You don't shrink in fear of not receiving it. You expand in joyful anticipation. You see signs everywhere, not because they weren't there before, but because your awareness has changed. You've attuned yourself to a different rhythm. When this internal state becomes your home, your external world starts to rearrange itself to match it. There is something powerful that happens when you stop living from what if it doesn't happen and begin to live from what if it already has. That simple shift in perspective invites miracles, not because you forced them, but because you finally stopped blocking them. The universe responds not to your words, but to your vibration, to the story you are telling yourself when no one is listening. When you carry the story of someone who always gets what they want, not from ego, but from deep trust, you emit a signal that life cannot ignore. This signal says, I am ready. Not I hope, not I'll try, but I am. That energy opens doors you never even knew existed. This is why sometimes the right people come into your life the moment you stop meeting them to. Your job is not to figure out every step. Your job is to stay in the energy of already having it. Most people wait for evidence before they believe. But the deeper truth is that belief creates the evidence. Life is not a cause and effect machine. It is a mirror. And mirrors don't change until you do. If you want to see a different reflection, you must show up differently. To act as if is not to lie to yourself, but to live from a deeper truth than the one your senses currently show you. It is to say, I know who I am becoming. This understanding frees you from the trap of waiting. You no longer need permission. You don't wait for someone to choose you. You choose yourself. You choose your path. You move as though it's already done, because in a sense, it is. The moment you embody the reality, the moment you truly align with the vibration of what you desire, it begins to unfold. Maybe not instantly, maybe not in the way you expect, but it must unfold. Imagine for a moment that nothing stands between you and the life you dream of. No distance, no time, no effort required. It is here, now, present in the quiet folds of your being. But the mind, in its ever-anxious dance, whispers otherwise. One day, it says, someday. And so you wait. The power of assumption is one of the most overlooked forces shaping the reality we live in. Every moment, without realizing it, we are assuming things about ourselves, about others, and about the world. These assumptions are not idle thoughts. They are the silent architects of experience. What you assume to be true, whether consciously or unconsciously, becomes the framework through which life unfolds. You may believe you're waiting for change, for opportunities, for things to improve, but in truth, life is responding to the inner posture you have already taken. Assumption is not the same as wishing or hoping. It's not passive. It's not about sitting quietly with crossed fingers. Assumption is active, alive. It is the bold claiming of something unseen. When you assume something as true, even in the absence of evidence, you are shaping the very lens through which reality presents itself to you. The curious thing is this: the world doesn't show you what's real in some object. It shows you what you are being, and what you are being is always tied to what you assume. If you walk into a room assuming you are unworthy, you will carry yourself differently. You will interpret neutral glances as rejection, silence as judgment, and kindness as suspicious. The assumption poisons perception, and that altered perception will influence your behavior. How you speak, how you stand, how you respond. Others in turn react to you based on what you're expressing, whether you're aware of it or not. And so your original assumption appears to be confirmed by reality. But the truth is, you created it. Now, imagine, assuming the opposite, imagine walking into the same room believing, without doubt, that you belong, that you are worthy, that you are seen, respected, even admired. That assumption would transform your posture. You'd stand taller, speak with clarity, meet eyes without fear, and the world would respond in kind. People would sense the difference, because human beings, for all their distractions, still respond to energy. They see what you see in yourself, whether consciously or not. Assumption is the soil in which your identity takes root. Before you achieve anything in the external world, you must first claim it internally. You must assume the feeling of being the one who has already arrived. This is not delusion. It is alignment. When you assume the state of your desired self, you begin to speak like them, act like them, make choices like them. The self-machine shifts. The old identity loosens its grip. A new one begins to form, and as that new self solidifies through repetition and belief, your world quietly changes to reflect it. We are often taught to be realistic, as if realism is some moral virtue. But what is realism except loyalty to what has already been experienced? If you only believe in what you can see, you will forever be trapped in a loop of repetition. The same thoughts, the same emotions, the same results. But assumption breaks the loop. It dares to go beyond what is and anchors itself in what could be as if it already is. And that act of belief opens the door, because reality is not fixed. It is fluid, responsive. It flows where attention flows, and it bends to the convictions you hold most deeply. When you assume wealth, confidence, peace, or love, not as a distant goal, but as a present truth, you begin to draw experiences that mirror that assumption. You are not forcing the world to change, you are aligning with a version of it that already exists in potential. There is a strange magic in this. The moment you decide something is true for you, life begins to reflect that truth, not instantly, but inevitably. The delay is not denial, it is preparation. It is the world reorganizing itself around your new state of being. But it only continues to do so if you remain steady in the assumption. If you waver, if you doubt, if you slide back into old beliefs, the process halts. Not because life is against you, but because you are no longer sending a clear signal. The question is never, is it possible, but can I believe it enough to become it? Assumption is the silent doorway to transformation. Walk through it boldly. The rest will follow. Before anything happens in the outer world, something first shifts within. Long before the visible success, the dream home, the fulfilling relationship, or the personal peace, there is a change in identity. This is the unspoken law that governs all transformation. Identity always precedes experience. You do not stumble into a new life by accident. You step into it by becoming someone new. This isn't about pretending or performing. It's about aligning with a deeper version of yourself, the one already capable of living the life you desire. You cannot experience abundance while clinging to the identity of someone who believes they're undeserving. You cannot attract love while identifying as someone unworthy of being seen. The mind, clever as it is, follows the blueprint you give it. An identity is that blueprint. If you try to change your world without first changing how you see yourself, you'll find yourself endlessly pushing against invisible walls. Most people try to chase new results with the same old identity. They want better outcomes, but their self-concept remains stuck in the past. They use effort to force change, but the identity pulling the strings remains unchanged. And so they revert, they sabotage, they start and then stop. It's not because they're lazy or incapable. It's because their internal story hasn't evolved. You become what you believe yourself to be, not in a vague or mystical sense, but in the most practical way. Your thoughts, your choices, your habits, all flow from who you think you are. If you see yourself as a disciplined person, you naturally act in ways that reflect discipline. If you identify as someone who always gives up, then every challenge is seen through that lens. Your outer world bends to match that self-conceit. This is why lasting change feels so difficult. It's not the environment or the people around you. It's not the circumstances. It's the quiet grip of identity, whispering in every moment what is possible and what is not. And unless you rise above that story, you will always find yourself repeating it, no matter how hard you try to escape it. But the beauty of it all is this: identity is not fixed. It is not etched in stone. It is a story told often, believed deeply, but always open to revision. You are not bound by your past. You are not a prisoner of old definitions. At any moment, you can choose to see yourself differently, not based on what you've been, but on who you are willing to become. And when that internal shift happens, reality begins to respond. You begin to speak differently. You walk into rooms differently. You stop chasing approval and start embodying presence. This isn't arrogance. It's ownership. It's the quiet power that comes from knowing who you are and acting from that place. Not waiting for confirmation from the outside, but moving as if it is already true. And strangely enough, when you no longer need the world to validate your identity, the world meets you at the level of your self-concept. If you believe you are always struggling, life will give you reasons to struggle. If you believe you are powerful, creative, and calm, life will shape itself around that belief. This is not wishful thinking. It's energetic alignment. It's living from the inside out rather than the outside in. The shift doesn't need to be loud. You don't need to announce it. You simply begin to be differently. You start waking up with a new lens, asking not, what can I get today, but who would I be if I already had what I seek? That question alone begins to unravel the old stories. It calls you into action, not from desperation, but from clarity, from wholeness, from truth. You see, when identity changes, experience naturally follows. Not because you chased the experience, but because you became the kind of person for whom that experience is natural. Success, peace, love, they're not things you achieve. They're reflections of who you have decided to be. So the work is always within. The results are just echoes. You are not waiting for something to happen. You are waiting to remember who you really are. And once you do, everything changes. Not all at once, but inevitably. Experience will rise to meet the identity you finally chose to claim. Imagination is not just a pleasant distraction or a tool for entertainment. It is the origin of everything that comes into form. The world you live in, the life you call your own, the circumstances you navigate daily, all of it first began in someone's mind. Every invention, every building, every relationship, every change starts with an image, a feeling, a concept held in the unseen realm. What you imagine consistently with belief and emotion becomes the silent architect of your reality. The mistake most people make is to think of imagination as something separate from life, as if it exists only in daydreams or childish fantasies. But what is imagination if not the ability to create before the world reflects it? You're not just watching your life unfold, shaping it moment by moment by the images and emotions you allow yourself to dwell in. Whether you do this consciously or not doesn't matter. Imagination is always at work. The only question is, are you guiding it, or are you letting it be guided by fear, doubt, and limitation? The future is not waiting to be discovered, it is waiting to be imagined. And the clearer the picture, the more detailed the vision, the more powerful the effect. When you imagine something vividly and frequently, your mind begins to accept it as familiar. And what is familiar feels safe, even if it hasn't yet happened. This is why imagination is so potent. It makes the unfamiliar familiar, and once something is familiar, you begin. People often try to change their lives through force, more effort, more struggle, more control. But real change happens in the subtle realms first. You shift the image you hold of yourself, the way you see your future, the feelings you associate with possibility. Then naturally, action flows from that inner change. You are not forcing yourself to act. You are pulled by the vision you've internalized. That's the quiet power of imagination. It becomes the blueprint. And once the blueprint is in place, your entire system begins building around it. Imagination speaks in pictures, emotions, symbols. It doesn't need logic or permission. It only needs your willingness to step beyond the evidence of what is and into the realm of what could be. And yet, the moment you do, your energy shifts. You begin living not from memory, but from vision. Most live in reverse. They wake up each day and replay the past, expecting the same emotions, the same obstacles, the same limitations. But imagination allows you to break that cycle. It frees you from the loop of repetition. When you imagine a new possibility and feel it as real, you are no longer bound to the old identity. You begin to dissolve the rigid patterns that once held you captive. You speak differently, you carry yourself differently, and you make choices aligned with that inner image. You no longer act out of habit, but from purpose. Imagination plants the seed, and attention waters it. With time, it grows into experience. It's not about pretending or denying reality, it's about seeing more deeply, recognizing that everything you call real was once invisible. The life you long for exists already in potential. Imagination is how you reach into that potential and begin shaping it. It's how you whisper to the universe, "This is who I am becoming," and then begin to walk that path, even before the world. There is something sacred about the images you hold within. They are not just fantasies, they are instructions. When you dwell on fear, lack, and limitation, you are giving your system those instructions. And when you dwell on peace, abundance, strength, you are giving it a different script. Imagination is not passive. It is the most active force in creation. What you see within becomes the world you walk through. To live by imagination is to understand that life is not happening to you. It is responding to you. It is responding to the pictures you honor, the feelings you feed, the dreams you dare to believe in. And when you begin to imagine, not just casually, but intentionally, everything begins to shift. Not because the outer world has changed, but because the inner world finally came into alignment. You are not waiting for life to change. Life is waiting for you to imagine more, to step beyond what is and see what could be, not as a distant hope, but as a present truth. And the moment you do, you begin to live by design, not by default. Imagination becomes the blueprint, and reality follows the plan. Now is all you have. This moment, unfolding in silence, breathing through your awareness, is the only point where life actually exists. Everything else is either memory or imagination, reflections in the mind. The past is gone, unreachable except through thoughts. The future is unborn, always a few steps ahead, never quite arriving. But now, this living, breathing presence is the center of it all. And yet, how often do we abandon it? We spend so much time chasing the next thing. We build our lives on the promise of someday when things are better, we'll relax. Someday when we achieve enough, we'll feel whole. Someday when the world finally reflects what we desire, we'll give ourselves permission to be present. But that day never arrives, because presence is not something we find later, it's something we surrender to now. You cannot live fully in a moment you resist. And yet, resistance is what keeps you from peace. You argue with the present, hoping to control what already is. You relive past wounds, hoping to change what cannot be undone. Or you brace for imagined outcomes, preparing for what may never come. And in all that mental activity, you miss the one place where life can truly be touched. Right here. When you awaken to the now, time loses its grip. Not because you forget your responsibilities or abandon direction, but because you stop identifying with the noise of time. You realize that everything you've been seeking, a sense of meaning, joy, wholeness, does not exist in the story of then, but in the quiet of now. The mind wants to race ahead or look behind, but the soul. Notice how in this moment there is no problem. Problems exist when you project ahead or pull back. But in this breath, this awareness, there is simply being. You may still be navigating challenges, but the suffering begins when you step out of presence. You lose yourself in what could go wrong, what already went wrong, and you forget the power of this stillness. Now is not empty. It's overflowing with everything you need. Every insight, every solution, every step forward begins here. Even the future you imagine will not be experienced as the future. When it arrives, it too will be now. So if you cannot find peace here, you will not find it there. You take your consciousness with you. If it is restless now, it will be restless then. If it is peaceful now, it can meet whatever. Many people wait for life to be different before they allow themselves to be present. The presence is not a reward for getting everything right. It is a path through which everything becomes right. When you are present, you listen more deeply. You act from clarity, not compulsion. You begin to respond instead of react. And you discover that most of what you feared was simply a creation of your own mind. Presence is not about control, it's about connection. When you return to now, you return to life. You begin to feel again. You begin to notice the beauty in small things, the way the light moves, the sound of breath, the rhythm of silence between words. These are not distractions, they are reality. And when you honor reality, you begin to heal. You begin to remember what it feels like to be whole. You do not need more time. You need more presence within the time you already have. Time expands when you are here. A single moment of awareness can hold more depth than a year of unconscious doing. But you must be willing to stop chasing and start arriving. You must stop treating the present as a means to an end and begin to see it as the end itself. Now is not a stepping stone, it is the destination. And the paradox is, when you fully embrace it, everything else begins to unfold naturally. The mind quiets, the heart opens, and life begins to reveal its rhythm, not as something to be mastered, but as something to be met. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing anything. You are here, and this here-ness is the doorway to everything. The richness you seek is not waiting in another chapter. It's written in this sentence, in this breath, in this exact second. This moment is not a trap. It is freedom disguised as simplicity. It is the invitation you've been ignoring while searching for something louder. But if you pause long enough, you'll realize now is all you have. And in that, you already have everything. The world you see outside of you is not separate from what lives within you. It is a reflection, a mirror that quietly reveals the patterns, beliefs, and energy you carry. We often think the world is doing something to us, that people are rude, opportunities are scarce, circumstances are unfair. But if you look closely, the world is simply responding. It echoes what you project, not in punishment or reward, but in perfect resonance. When you feel unseen, unheard, or undervalued, it's tempting to blame the outside. But ask yourself, do you see yourself clearly? Do you listen to your own needs? Do you value who you are without needing someone else to validate it? The mirror only shows what you are already holding. If there is conflict in your relationships, it may not be because others are wrong. It may be because you are at war with parts of yourself. If you constantly face rejection, maybe you are rejecting your own worth before anyone else has the chance. You cannot escape yourself by changing the scenery. You can move cities, change jobs, walk away from people, but if the same patterns keep repeating, it's not the world that needs changing, it is the inner world asking for your attention. The moment you shift your thoughts, your energy, your sense of self, the outer world begins to reflect something new. It may not happen instantly, but the mirror always updates. This reflection is subtle. It's not about blame or judgment, it's about awareness. You are not being punished by life. You are being shown yourself. If your world feels chaotic, perhaps your inner space is cluttered with too many conflicting voices. If everything feels stuck, maybe you've been holding on to beliefs that tell you change is unsafe or unworthy. The outer world cannot contradict what you truly believe inside. It follows the deeper frequency, not the words you speak on the surface. When you begin to take responsibility for your reflection, everything changes. You stop reacting to the mirror. You start adjusting what you're projecting. Instead of shouting at the reflection to smile, you learn to smile first. The energy you carry becomes the invitation. You become less concerned with controlling the world and more curious about what it's showing you. And in that shift, you find power, not over others, but within yourself. People treat you based on the way you allow them to. Life treats you based on the way you expect it to. If you believe the world is harsh, you'll find evidence of it. If you believe life is full of possibility, that too will show up. Your beliefs are not invisible. They are painted across every experience you have. What you focus on expands. And what you believe becomes the lens through which everything is filtered. If you want peace in your world, find peace in your thoughts. If you want love, be the space where love naturally arises. This is not a game of pretending. It's a path of remembering. You already have access to what you're seeking, but you must align with it internally before the world mirrors it back. You cannot demand abundance while holding on to beliefs of lack. You cannot invite trust while living in fear. The mirror reflects truth, not illusion. It is a humbling realization to know that nothing is separate, that every frustration, every joy, every experience is a teacher. The world is not against you. It is revealing the exact vibration you are sending out. And when you begin to shift the way you see yourself, when you soften, when you release old stories, when you step into your worth, the reflection changes. Not because the mirror is kind, but because it is precise. Let this bring you comfort. You are not at the mercy of the world. You are a creator participating in every moment. Life is not something happening to you, it's something responding to you. And that response is the reflection of your consciousness, your attention, your belief. Change the source, and the reflection must follow. The beauty of this is that no one has to change for your world to change. You don't have to wait. You don't have to force. You simply have to become aware of what you are projecting, and then choose again. With every new thought, with every act of self-honor, you polish the mirror. You clear the distortion. You allow life to reflect back the truth of who you really are. And so the essence of it all returns to one simple truth. The world you experience is not separate from who you are. Your reality is not fixed. It is fluid, ever shaped by the energy you carry, the thoughts you entertain, and the identity you embody. To act as if you are already living your dream life is not to deceive yourself, but to align with a deeper truth that the seeds of that life already live within you, When you assume your highest self, when you imagine boldly, when you live fully in the now and take responsibility for your reflection, you begin to see life not as something to chase, but as something that rises to meet you. You are not waiting for the world to change. The world is waiting for you to remember who you are.